What would you do if every achievement you ever made was erased from history, just because someone higher up decided you were nothing more than a mechanic? I ask myself that sometimes, usually before dawn, when the sky is still gray and the wind hasn't yet woken the dust. The armory smells like oil and saltless sweat. I unlock the steel doors before the sun even thinks of rising. At Camp Echo, nothing waits for you except your duty, or what's left of it. I start with the rifles. Always. Row by row, each one laid bare like bones waiting for ritual. I strip them down not because I need to, they're not dirty, but because the act keeps my hands busy. Keeps me from counting ghosts. There's a rhythm to it. Brush down the bolt. Check the chamber for fractures. Balance the firing pin. It's a prayer made of steel. My uniform has no patches, no bars, no indication of what I was, only the name Parker. A plain stitch across the chest, as if the rest of me didn't matter. That was the deal I made with myself. Strip it all away. Leave the ribbons, the rank, the record in the desert, they're just more things to bury. I promise myself never shoot again. Most days that's enough. But not today. Outside the base stirs. Boots hitting dirt. Voices trying too hard to sound important. The air smells of gunpowder and coffee. Then he comes. Sgt Bryce. 24 maybe. Full of teeth and noise. He runs the range like a man who thinks command comes from volume, not precision. I can hear him before I see him. Then his shadow cuts the light spilling through the armory door. He sneers when he spots me hunched over a stripped-down M110. "Hey Parker," he says, voice loud enough for the others nearby. "Ever actually shoot anyone? Or just here to polish the leftovers?" I keep my head down. Keep the cloth moving in small circles. He waits, expecting an answer. I don't give him one. Because my war isn't over. It never left me. And where I fought, questions didn't come back with the survivors. Bryce laughs under his breath, muttering something to his friends as he walks away. But I'm not listening anymore. I'm remembering a different rifle. A different time. A scope. A breath. The light inside the lens bending around a face I was ordered to end. I put that memory back where it belongs, in the locked place. I clean the rifle until it gleams, until the ache in my hands numbs the one in my chest. This is my battlefield now. The bolts, the chambers, the weight of things built to kill. And I carry them in silence. Because the shot I took last, the one that brought me home, is the one that won't let me go. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when I lived through a scope. They called it the long glass. The cold glass. The place where a heartbeat slowed, and the world shrank to inches. I was an elite sniper. A designation not recorded on any uniform, not recognized in any ceremony. They trained us quietly. Fed us discipline and repetition until there was nothing left but calculation. Shadow operations, they called them. Deployments we didn't log. Coordinates never marked on maps. Places that, officially, never burned, never bled. We weren't just ghosts, we were the ones the ghosts feared. But the last mission, they said it was a rescue. High-value target. Covert extraction. What they didn't say was that we weren't supposed to come back. We went in 6. Me with the glass, the others with blades, with silence. We landed under black sky, in a valley that smelled of heat and iron. The extraction point was supposed to be clean, controlled. But when we arrived, there were bodies already cooling. Tripwires blinking low in the dirt. A perimeter we couldn't see, until it was too late. I remember the orders. If compromised, collapse the perimeter. Take the shot. The shot. I saw my team fall. Not all at once. One here, another just steps away. Crawling for cover that wasn't there. I had the shot lined up, the one that might open an exit for them. I took it. And the valley swallowed the sound. The perimeter cracked just enough for them to move. But no one moved. Only me. They were gone before the echo faded. I woke up days later, half my ribs broken, a bone-deep scar across my thigh. They said I was lucky. They said I was a hero. Quietly. In a room with no windows. They gave me a medal. No name on it. Just a symbol. An acknowledgement that wouldn't appear in records, wouldn't decorate any wall. Then they asked me what I wanted. Discharge. Promotion. I told them I wanted a promise. Never put a rifle in my hands again. They agreed. On paper I vanished. No press, no photograph, No flag folded into a triangle. They sent me to Camp Echo, a place for the almost forgotten, a cleaner of weapons, a mechanic of death with a mop instead of a trigger, because that was the only way I could live with the shot I took, the last one. I don't keep photos of my team. There were never any to keep. But I remember their faces. I remember the way we never said goodbye, only, watch your six. I wasn't fast enough, so now I keep cleaning. I keep the steel clean, even when the men holding it don't know how to respect it, because some debts you carry until the body gives out. And I promised myself, never fire again. Camp Echo forgets people easily. It's built for that. Out here, you're what your uniform says you are. Mine says Private Parker. That's all anyone bothers to read. Sgt Bryce makes sure of it. He runs the range like it's his own little war zone. Barked orders, loud discipline, no precision. His voice carries farther than his bullets. And me? I'm the cleaner. I keep the rifles straight, the barrels clear, the bolts reset. Every week they bring back weapons that shouldn't miss. Balance tuned, yet the shots still go wide. The soldiers complain. The scope's off. Bad trigger. Cheap steel. They say it to each other, and sometimes loud enough for me to hear. They never ask what I know. To them I'm maintenance. Invisible in plain sight. Bryce plays into it. Parker, he calls across the range. Why don't you come show them how to clean like a real janitor? The laughter follows, always shallow. He thinks it lands because I don't fire back. But there's no defense in words. I carry my knowledge like I carry the dead, tight, private, unshared. There's a peculiar cruelty in watching them mishandle rifles I've made perfect. They load wrong. They hold wrong. They breathe wrong. But I say nothing, because if I open my mouth it means explaining. And if I explain it means remembering. And I've remembered enough. Then comes Collins. Specialist Dana Collins, comms officer, sharp-eyed and deliberate. She doesn't watch the range like the others. She watches me. Watches how the rifles never come back dirty. Watches how I inspect cracks before they form. She doesn't ask much, but she logs everything. I see it in the way she carries her tablet, in the way her eyes narrow when the others mock me. I catch her once staring at a screen frozen. I know what she's found, or at least part of it. She's tracing a path that's not supposed to exist. The ghost of my name on a sniper unit roster that was erased long before it was written. One name. One photograph. Redacted. But even ghosts leave fingerprints. And Collins is following them step by step. I could stop her. I could tell her what happened. But I don't. Because the truth is a rifle I promised never to pick up again. And some shots, even spoken, can't be taken back. Days pass and Collins keeps watching. She moves quieter now, but I still see the glances. The way she lingers at the terminal in the comms bunker after hours, eyes scanning records no one thinks to question. One evening, she comes into the armory while I'm reassembling an M4. She doesn't speak right away, just stands near the racks, like she's weighing something in her mind. I found it, she says finally. I don't look up. She steps closer, voice lower. You're not on any sniper roster. But there's a unit that doesn't exist anymore. Folded under too many black marks and redacted memos. There's a photo. It's grainy, but... She stops. It's you. Standing in the White House. The president pinning a medal on you. But the caption just says recipient confidential. Awarded in absentia. No name. No date. I don't move. She asks softly. Why did they erase you? I could tell her. About the mission. About how my shot bought time that no one lived long enough to use. About the weight of medals given in secret, the weight of survival when you're the last name standing. But I don't. I only say, because ghosts don't belong in headlines. She nods. She doesn't push further. That's why I trust her. The next morning, Camp Echo changes. Black SUVs. Dust curling in spirals as the convoy arrives. Soldiers straighten their spines. Bryce especially. His voice drops an octave when he hears the name. General Monroe. She steps out sharp, her gaze slicing through the camp like a wire pulled tight. There's no ceremony, no patience for pretense. She walks the range, watches Bryce parade his best shooters. They fail. Every shot too low, too far left, too scattered. Monroe's expression doesn't change, only cools. She turns to Bryce. Is this your best? Yes, ma'am, he stammers. They've been trained to standard. Her eyes drift past him. Across the dust, the stacked crates to the open armory door where I'm watching. She speaks clear and unflinching. Private Parker. Front and center. The range goes still. Bryce snorts, thinking it's some mistake. She's maintenance, ma'am. She doesn't fire. Monroe doesn't break her stare. Private. Front and center. I should stay still. I could refuse. No one's forced to fire, not under these pretenses. But Collins is there just behind the firing line. She meets my eyes and says under her breath, "They think you don't exist. Show them." I step forward. My boots crush the dust in slow, measured strides. The soldiers part, watching like they're seeing something crawl out of a myth. I stop before the general. She gestures to the table. A rifle laid ready. A target placed beyond the limits of their usual range. 1,500 yards, Monroe says. Hit it. I glance at the rifle. Standard issue, but it'll do. I speak quietly, so only Monroe and Collins can hear. This shot is the only one I'll allow myself in the last 10 years. I lie prone. The stock settles into my shoulder like it remembers me. I breathe in slow, measured. The old rhythm returns. Find the line, measure wind, gauge drift. Exhale. Squeeze. The rifle cracks. 1,500 yards away, the target takes a clean punch, dead center. No hesitation. No adjustment. I stand. Unload the rifle. Set it back on the table with care. Then I turn, walking back across the dust, past the stunned faces, past Bryce, whose mouth hangs slightly open. Monroe's voice cuts through. Your best shooter was scrubbing rifles in silence. I don't look back. I return to the armory, pick up the cloth again, start wiping down the bolt I'd left unfinished. Promise intact. I fired once. I won't fire again. At Camp Echo, the heat doesn't wait. By mid-morning, the sun carves shadows into the concrete, burning the air into stillness. The convoy arrived just past 8. Black SUVs, their engines humming like low thunder. No flags. No insignias. Just the kind of presence that told everyone on base to stand straighter. General Monroe stepped out first. Her hair was gray, pulled tight, but it wasn't age that made her severe, it was her eyes. Eyes that cataloged a battlefield, even if the field was just desert sand and a cracked firing range. Sgt Bryce met her with too much noise. General Monroe, ma'am. Camp Echo welcomes you two. She raised a hand. A single gesture, silencing him mid-sentence. I'm not here for courtesies, Sergeant. I'm here to see your shooters. Bryce swallowed and nodded quickly, turning on his heel to bark his usual commands. The soldiers lined up, rifles in hand, dust kicking at their boots, eyes squinting against the glare. They weren't ready. The first shots rang out, a scatter of dull cracks. Target swayed downrange, peppered but unimpressed. Monroe watched in silence, her gaze moving from rifle to rifle, from shaky stance to hesitant trigger pulls. The range master marked the scores, his clipboard growing heavier with failure. Bryce hovered nearby, sweat beginning to gather under his collar. They're green, ma'am, he offered, almost pleading. But they're learning. Monroe shook her head, her voice low. No, they're not. She let that sit for a moment, the failure thick in the air. Then she turned, not to Bryce, not to the soldiers, but to the open mouth of the armory. Private Parker, she called. It wasn't loud, but it cut through everything. I was already watching from the shadowed entrance. The rifles on my bench still disassembled, steel glinting in pieces. I didn't move. She waited, eyes locked. Front and center, she repeated. Bryce stepped forward, half laughing, half sneering. Ma'am, that's just Parker. She's maintenance. Doesn't even fire. But Monroe didn't break her stare. Behind her, Specialist Dana Collins stood among the watching ranks, her eyes flicking between me and the general, holding something close in her expression. Private, Monroe said, her voice like a taut wire. That wasn't a request. I stepped forward. Slow. Measured. Each bootfall crunched in the dust, the sound louder in the silence. Soldiers parted without thinking. Bryce watched, a crooked grin on his face. Monroe gestured to a rifle on the table. A standard M2010, long and quiet, the stock polished by indifferent hands. 1,500 yards, she said. Hit it. I stared at the rifle. The promise I made pressed heavy on my chest, but something else whispered beneath it, the feeling of being seen. I stepped to the line, took a knee, then prone. The dust welcomed me like an old friend. I ran my hand over the rifle's barrel, feeling for imperfections, for the weight distribution. The scope wasn't perfect, but neither was the field, not back then. I spoke a loud voice even. 1 shot. This is the only one I'll allow myself in the last 10 years. I chambered the round. Breathe. Time slowed. The wind was low, but moving left to right, I adjusted the angle. My cheek met the stock. The scope's glass cleared the world away until there was only the target. A steel plate, barely visible, swaying slightly in the heat. Breath in. Hold. Squeeze. The shot cracked like a bone snapping in winter. No echo. No stutter. Downrange, the steel plate shivered once. A single mark dead center. I stood. Cleared the chamber. Set the rifle back on the table. I didn't wait for praise. Didn't wait for anyone. I turned and walked back across the range. Past Bryce's stunned face. Past the soldiers, eyes wide, mouths half open. Monroe's voice chased after me. Your best shooter was scrubbing rifles in silence. I didn't look back. In the armory, I resumed my work. My hands knew the weight of bolts, the texture of brushes. But my ears carried the new silence of the range. A different kind of silence, not confusion but reckoning. Collins came later. She stood just inside the doorway, holding her tablet like a shield. They're talking about it, she said. Everywhere. I didn't answer. She stepped closer. Her voice quieter. Why didn't you tell them who you are? I finished assembling the rifle in front of me. The parts fit together seamless as if they belonged. Because knowing doesn't change what I did, I said. She watched me. I could feel her wanting to ask, wanting to understand. But instead she said, I found the old photo. I know it's you. The one without a name, I said. She nodded. They can't keep you invisible anymore. I shook my head, setting the rifle aside. I was never invisible, I said. Just quiet. Outside, Monroe was still on the range. She'd ordered Bryce off it, reassigned to the supply depot. An administrative exile dressed as a transfer. She stood with the soldiers, walking them through every stance, every breath. But there was a weight to her now, like she was thinking of ghosts. At the end of the day, Monroe stopped by the armory. She didn't enter. She stood at the door, watching me wipe down another rifle. You didn't have to step up, she said. I did, I answered without looking up. You called me. That was enough. She was silent for a while, then, I'm leaving your name on the shooting log. I paused. The cloth in my hand stilled. It was 1 shot, I reminded her. She nodded. Exactly. Then she left. The range never went back to noise. The soldiers trained quieter now, more deliberate. The shadow of that single shot stretching over every pull of the trigger. And me? I stayed in the armory, folding cloth, cleaning bolts, carrying promises in silence. Because a shot never truly ends when it lands. It echoes in the way people stand, in the way they remember. I never fired again, but they remembered anyway. Because sometimes 1 shot is all it takes to remind the world that you were here. Even if no one remembers your name, the armory is my church. Rows of rifles stand like pews, each one a quiet sermon in steel. I polish them piece by piece in the dim light before sunrise. No medals on my chest, no stripes on my sleeves. Just the cloth, the oil, the memory. I hear them outside. The soldiers. Their voices have changed. Not louder, never that again, but steadier. On the range they speak less. They breathe with discipline. They listen to their rifles like they're listening to themselves. They don't look at me the same way anymore. Some nod when they pass. Some offer small acknowledgments, a ma'am under their breath, uncertain if it fits. I don't need their respect. But I let them offer it because it's not really for me. It's for the ghost that walks with me. The 1 shot I took that day. The one that landed so clean the air still remembers its path. General Monroe left her mark here. Bryce is gone, reassigned to some depot where his noise won't matter. The range, though, it breathes differently now. Like the dirt itself knows something was restored. Collins still visits the armory. She never asks for stories. But she leaves datapads near my workbench sometimes, files, fragments of records, names of missions half buried. She's building something even if she doesn't say what. Once, she left a message written on a note folded between rifle cloth. Silence is memory too. She was right. I never fired again. The rifles remain clean under my hands. The bolts slide smooth, the chambers spotless. But they remember. The steel remembers. The desert remembers. And the shot, the only one I allowed myself, echoes not because of what it destroyed but because of what it restored. Somewhere, in some record, maybe my name is still crossed out. Maybe the metal without a name gathers dust in some vault. But here, in this place, they know. They know the cleaner was more than her cloth. That one shot was enough. I fold my rag, place it back in the drawer and sit in the quiet. I don't need a rifle to mark my existence. I only needed that one shot to remind them. Real heroes don't shout about themselves. But one day comes when their silence is louder than any bullet. And the world listens. Even if just once.